I'm sure things are interesting inside there already. 6:45 a.m. Let's bring in Jonathan Swan from Axios. And Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us today. Nick Confessori with the New York Times has the first question. Nick.
Jonathan, good morning. So my question for you is why this and why now from Bannon? As recently as a few months ago, we saw him on 60 Minutes saying that the Russia investigation was a waste of time, and now he's talking about treason. What's changed, and what's his motivation for nuking the entire West Wing?
Well, you sound like some of his allies who were asking me that question yesterday. Why would he do this? It is a question that people close to him can't understand, and I think it's incredibly stupid. It's something he's been saying privately, by the way. None of this is stuff that he wasn't saying privately for months. The new thing is that he said it on the record. But one little wrinkle I would add, which sort of helps you understand Bannon's psychology and how he thinks about himself. Bannon has told more than one person close to him that if Trump is impeached, he will run in a Republican primary in 2020 against Mike Pence. And he thinks that he could actually get more support among evangelicals than Pence. This sounds crazy. It is true. Bannon denies it. I'm telling you from my own reporting, multiple sources, take it to the bank, he has said this.
Jonathan, it's Megan. I want to ask you, too, what the Washington Post is reporting, too, about Rebecca Mercer and the Mercer family pulling their money from Steve Bannon. Where does that leave him in terms of both what you just said there and in terms of his influence with other candidates if he doesn't have the cash to back it up?
Well, they've already, I mean, Bob Mercer put out a pretty extraordinary statement. He's a billionaire hedge fund investor. And has been Bannon's primary financial sponsor for a long time now, huge investor in Breitbart. And he put out a pretty extraordinary public statement distancing himself from Steve Bannon. So this is something that has, been rolling out for a couple of months now. And, the Mercers, I think, resented being tied to everything that Steve Bannon was doing and being implicated in all of his schemes and ideas.
Okay, so Jonathan, the thing about Bannon is that a lot of people at this table are trying to impute Machiavellian motives to him, sort of doing this with Michael Wolff. And there may be a counter-narrative, which is that Steve Bannon is a heedless big mouth who doesn't think through the implications of what he's doing. He lost his job at the White House because he gave an interview to Robert Kuttner of the American Prospect in which he claimed that we were going to start a trade war with China. So this just, I think, is a follow-on to that. The Bannon as the, man pulling the strings in the Republican Party and the conservative movement is belied by his own personal kind of stupid, psychotic conduct.
I think it's risible, the idea that there is like some four-dimensional chess going on here and Bannon has an end game that none of us are aware of and he's thinking 5 moves ahead. I mean, give me a break. I mean, give me a break.
And look, I think something else is going on here, which is the Mercers have cut him off. Trump is now suing him on the NDA. Breitbart is going to come under pressure to cut him loose because a war between Trump, who is Breitbart's, for whom Breitbart is, it's a fanzine, and the head of Breitbart being now the key antagonist of Trump. Breitbart's going to come under pressure to cut Bannon loose. Bannon could be completely without resources in a matter of days. I mean, hire a lawyer, defend himself against this if it goes forward, this NDA suit. I mean, this is pretty savage counterattacking, it seems to me.
Well, I think there's a big asterisk in TBD whether Trump follows through on the threat, because he obviously has a history of doing this, and the number of times he's actually followed through on the threat of litigation is pretty small. But more broadly, your point's right about Breitbart. I mean, I don't think there's any risk in the short term of Bannon, being kicked out of, Larry Solov kicking him out of Breitbart. But if you looked at the Breitbart comment section yesterday, one of the things that Steve did that really angered a lot of people that he would consider his base was he went after Don Jr., who is very, very popular among a lot of the Breitbart readership. And Don Jr. quite gleefully pointed out that the Breitbart commenters were turning on Steve Bannon. So, like, when Bannon's lost the Breitbart comment section, I mean, you're really in a tough spot.
All right, Jonathan Swan with Axios, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. You know what's so interesting about both of these characters, Jeremy, is that you have in Donald Trump a day trader who he's just not in it for the long game. He just, you can see that with his Twitter feed, and the same thing with Steve Bannon. So you never know what's going to be coming next in their personal relationship. But again, you do know that Bob Mueller and his team have to be looking at these treasonous remarks and figuring out the next best move. What do you think that is for Bob Mueller and the investigation?
Well, they may want to re-interview Steve Bannon and find out a little bit more about what he heard when he was inside the campaign, inside the transition, and inside the White House about the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Bannon has had kind of conflicting public accounts of whether he thinks the Russia investigation is proper or not, to the earlier conversation. This is really the first time we've heard him on the record about money laundering and about financial transactions between the Trump organization and people in the Russian Federation. So I think this, again, is an area where Bob Mueller is going to